She's standing in the rain with a baby wrapped in a soaked gray blanket, 6 miles from anywhere warm, and the man driving past almost doesn't stop. Silas Corbin had been pushing his horse hard since the storm turned serious that afternoon. 2 miles left to a dry barn, and he meant to close that gap before dark swallowed the road. The mud was sucking at his wagon wheels. Rain sideways, then straight down, then sideways again. That's when he saw her, a shape at the edge of the road that didn't belong there. Too tall for a fence post, too small for a tree. He pulled his horse, Duke, to a stop. A woman. Back to the wind, bent forward the way you stand when you've been fighting weather so long you've stopped expecting it to end. Blue dress soaked through, doing nothing for her anymore. Boots buried in mud past the ankle. In her arms, a bundle wrapped in gray, held tight against her chest. "Ma'am." She looked up. Young face, dark eyes doing two things at once, sizing him up the way a woman alone on an empty road has to, and just barely failing to hide how tired she was underneath it. "I'm fine," she said. It wasn't true, by any measure. "You're soaked through and it's getting dark," Silas said. "Temperature's dropping fast." The bundle shifted. "Is that a baby?" "My daughter. She's fine." His father used to tell him, "You stop for people on the road, and you don't make them explain themselves first." He slid over on the bench. "Get up. You don't know me." "No. But I know it's getting dark and cold, and you're holding a baby." He held her gaze through the rain. "Silas Corbin. Ranch is 2 miles south. Barn, house, fire." She looked at the road ahead, at him, at the sky, doing math that took longer than weather and distance should have. "May we sleep in your barn?" He held out his hand. "You'll sleep in the house." She took it. The Corbin Ranch house had been built for 2 people and had held only one for 3 years. 1 chair pulled out. 1 coat on 2 hooks. A photograph on the mantel, and beside it, a gap where a second one used to sit. Wren noticed all of it in 30 seconds. The man who picked her up was a widower. Not wealthy, not struggling. He kept this house like something he respected but no longer loved. In the corner, a cradle, a little dusty, not forgotten, just set aside. She didn't ask. She had a feeling she'd understand soon enough. Silas went to the kitchen. Wren went to the spare room, laid the baby down, unwrapped the wet blanket. Ivy looked up with that wide, locked-in stare 4-month-olds give everything. "You," Wren whispered, "are entirely too calm for this." She changed Ivy into the one set of dry clothes she'd managed to protect and felt, for the first time in 6 days of train cars and mud, the relief of a person who has finally stopped moving. 1 minute of it. Then she got up to help. Silas was making soup, nothing fancy, just what was on hand. "Can I help?" "It's soup. Doesn't take 2 people. Everything takes 2 people. 1 to stir, 1 to watch the bread doesn't burn." He handed it over. "You live alone?" "Yes." "How long?" 3 years. She didn't ask what changed. She'd already seen the cradle. "I'm sorry." "Thank you." They ate at the kitchen table while rain hammered the windows. Ivy studied Silas with total focus. "She's looking at you." "I see that. Means she's decided you're interesting." "What's her name?" "Ivy." 4 months and a week. He nodded, went back to his soup. Silas ate dinner across from a stranger and her daughter and never once asked why they'd been alone on that road. The fever hit at 2 in the morning. Wren woke to Ivy burning against her side. Breathing fast but not labored, color high but not blue, soft spot normal. Sick, not yet dangerous. She was at the kitchen basin filling a pot when the light shifted. Silas stood there with a lamp, still in his work clothes. He'd been sleeping in a chair. Fever. I need hot water. He took the pot without a word. How high? High enough to worry me. Not the worst thing. Go back to her. I'll bring it. She sat with a damp cloth, talking low and steady. Silas came in, looked at Ivy, and something crossed his face before he pulled it back under control. He sat in the corner chair without being asked. She didn't tell him to leave. She kept Ivy nursing, watched her breathing all night. Silas tended the fire, went for more water, came back and watched them like a man who'd stumbled into something he'd already decided not to walk away from. At 3, Ivy finally slept. You should sleep, Wren said. I'm fine in the chair. Thank you for stopping on the road. My father told me to stop for people. It's not a virtue. It's a habit. Some habits are virtues. She lay down beside Ivy, close enough to feel the moment the fever broke. It broke before dawn. Wren let the relief land. She'd been scared in the night and hadn't shown it, and now she let herself feel it for 1 full minute before getting up. She made breakfast the way you make it when you want to say thank you without making someone sit through the saying of it. Silas came in at 6. Ivy, he said first, before anything else. Fever broke before dawn. She's sleeping. Road will be passable by noon, he said. I know. A few more days. Not a question. Ivy needs the rest. She didn't leave at noon. The days built their own shape. Silas ran the ranch. Wren ran the house, reorganized the pantry with the logic of someone who knows how to make food last a winter. On the second morning, she moved the coffee. Silas stood in front of the pantry for 10 seconds, lost. Where'd you put the coffee? Where it stays dry. It stayed dry where it was. It also stayed invisible behind 3 sacks of beans. The next week, a neighbor, Mrs. Whitcomb, came by with broth. Silas walked straight to the pantry and found the preserves on the first try. He said nothing. Mrs. Whitcomb missed nothing. She's strong, Mrs. Whitcomb told Wren, watching Ivy study her with total focus. Strong from the beginning. She left an hour later telling her husband that things were developing at the Corbin Ranch. He said that was their business. She said that was an interesting perspective. On the 4th evening, Wren asked without looking up from her mending, why'd you name the horse Duke? Came to me looking like he already owned the place. Wasn't going to argue. Ivy came to me in June. I almost named her June. What stopped you? I looked at her in the first minute and thought, this isn't a June. This is someone who's going to have opinions. She's got opinions about everything, he said, watching Ivy occupy herself with her own hands. She's trying to figure out who she is. The hands are just where she started. Something passed between them that neither one named. On the 6th evening, he bought Ivy a knitted cap in town without mentioning it. He'd walked past that shop window 5 days running before he finally went in. You didn't need to do that. She was cold on the porch. Thank you. But next time, ask me. You're right. I will. 2 days later, trouble arrived, not Nathaniel yet, but a rumor. A drifter mentioned to the store owner he'd seen a woman matching Wren's description at a stage stop, traveling under a different story. Mrs. Whitcomb rode straight out to warn her. Someone's going to come asking questions before your husband-to-be gets a say in it, she said. Wren told Silas that night she was thinking of moving on, before anyone official showed up, not because she wanted to, but because she was afraid of what her name might cost him. You'd run from a rumor, Silas said, after not running from a fever at 2 in the morning. It's not the same. It's exactly the same. Rumors don't need to be fed. Only starved. Stay. I'll answer half their questions myself. She stayed. Then a second turn came, one nobody saw building. Silas's sister-in-law, Margaret, Sarah's own sister, rode in from 2 counties over the following week, having heard through the same gossip chain that a woman and baby were living under Silas's roof. She sat across from him at that same kitchen table and asked him plainly if he understood what he was doing, moving on so fast, letting a stranger into Sarah's house. "It's my house too, Margaret," Silas said. "It has been for 3 years. I've been the only one living in it." "Sarah would want you happy," Margaret said. "I'm only asking if this is happiness, or if it's just not being alone anymore." Silas didn't answer right away. He thought about it seriously, the way he thought about everything. "I didn't stop for her because I was lonely," he finally said. "I stopped because it was the right thing to do. Everything after that, I chose on its own merit." Margaret studied him a long moment, then nodded slowly, satisfied in the way people are when an honest answer costs the person something to give. She left the next morning, and she came back for the wedding in April. Wren told him everything on the 8th night. About Elias, 6 years on a small Kentucky property. He'd gotten sick in July, 3 weeks after Ivy was born, gone 11 days later. His brother, Nathaniel Hargrove, wanted the property, the one with the best water access, the one he tried to buy for 8 years before Elias got there first. Nathaniel covered the funeral costs, then used that debt to file a petition back home calling her unfit. "Does he know which direction you went?" "Not exactly. He'll start south and work toward the territory line." "How far behind you?" 5 days. Maybe 4. "A petition that hasn't been heard isn't an order," Silas said. "It carries no weight in this county. Judge Pratt's our man. Let me talk to him before Nathaniel does." "Silas, you don't have to." "I know. Let me anyway." Pratt listened, asked 3 questions, then said, "Bring her tomorrow, before he shows up with his paperwork." He studied Silas. "You're planning to ask her to stay?" "Yes." "And if Hargrove weren't coming?" "Yes," Silas said again. "The trouble just made me say it sooner." Wren gave her account the next morning, plainly. Pratt told her the petition carried no weight without a proper hearing, and if Nathaniel showed up, he'd be heard, and so would she, equally. Nathaniel arrived that Friday with 2 men beside him. But he stopped in town first, trying to talk Pratt into hearing his side alone, without Wren present. Pratt refused, both sides together, or not at all. It was the first time Nathaniel understood this county wasn't going to bend the way his own had. By the time he reached the ranch, he'd already lost the only advantage he came with. "That's my brother's wife," he said. "My brother's child. I have a document." "I know about the document," Silas said, stepping up beside her. "Judge Pratt knows about it too." "Rosemary." "Wren," she said, voice level. Elias knew the difference. "So do you. The petition is a petition. Not heard, not decided, not an order. You paid for Elias's coffin. I'm grateful. You did not buy my daughter with it. Take a claim to Judge Pratt properly, or don't take one at all." Nathaniel looked at his 2 men, both suddenly interested in the road behind them. He got back in the wagon and left. "You didn't need me," Silas said. "No. But I'm glad you were there." "Ask me," she said. "Would you still ask me to stay, if no one were chasing you?" "Yes." "Ask me properly." He took off his hat. "Wren Hargrove. Will you stay?" "Yes," she said, simply. That evening he told her about Sarah, the pregnancy, the night the baby came too early, the name Daniel already chosen, and by morning both gone. "The cradle," she said quietly. "My father built it before Daniel was born. Putting it away felt like giving up on something I hadn't decided to give up on." "How long did it take you to get up in the morning?" "Third year, I started waking earlier without knowing why. Like something was about to happen I didn't want to miss." She came back with a small folded blanket. "Ivy's starting to roll. She could sleep in the cradle. If you want." He got up, carried the blanket in, laid it in the cradle himself. He came back and held her hand across the table. It wasn't a promise. It was the beginning of one. Nathaniel never came back to the ranch. Pratt told him Monday his petition carried no weight there, and pursuing it properly would take months he'd likely lose. He left town Wednesday. In December, a letter arrived from the old court clerk back home, uneasy about the petition from the start. He confirmed Elias had left the property to Wren and Ivy specifically. He kept records, Wren said. Honest people usually do. Winter came hard and beautiful in equal measure. In January they had their first real disagreement, over the feed supplier's bill. She was right. He admitted it without a fight. In February, Mrs. Whitcomb spent 3 hours in Wren's kitchen and told her husband the spring wedding she expected would be the best thing to happen in Miller's Bend in years. He said that was their business. She said that was an interesting perspective. In March, Silas found Wren helping Ivy, 7 months now, practice sitting up. This is what I was waking up for, he thought. Not the trouble. This. They married that April in the Miller's Bend church, snow gone from the valley, mountains still white above. Margaret sat in the front row this time. Silas wore the coat Sarah had always liked. Wren wore the same blue she'd arrived in. Ivy, 10 months old, took 2 unsteady steps during the ceremony, sat down, and looked at the congregation like she expected them to have witnessed it. They had. Your father would have liked this, Judge Pratt told Silas afterward. I know. I knew back in October, Mrs. Whitcomb told Wren, when he couldn't find the coffee. The ranch was better with 3 people in it. By November, Ivy was walking properly, with firm opinions about horses and fence posts. One evening, with the ledger open, Wren said, Silas. Yes. If it's a boy. He went still. He looked at the cradle in the corner. Daniel, he said. Not to replace him. Because the name still belongs in this house. Yes, he said. It does. Silas Corbin had once believed that cradle was proof of everything the house had lost. That winter, watching Ivy sleep in it, he understood it had never just been sitting there empty. It had been waiting. A man who stopped because his father told him to. A woman who asked for nothing but a barn and found something she wasn't looking for. A baby who judged everyone she met and never apologized for her conclusions. Some storms don't come to destroy. Some come to deliver.